Welcome to Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere. There's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreon, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon, so a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Guns of Navarone, RMP, Troy Shuka, Bose Nail, Justin Duso, Joseph Pizarro, Samson, Maris, Harry Blade, Mobile Max 777, Neo the One, Lost Cat FE, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Mike, Muted, Dick Earth Skeptic, NA Literalist, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Rob H, Nathan Thompson, The Real Gabster, Windrider, Liam Nedrick, Erwin Jennisons, Abraham Mohammed, Dave Rakia Gafford, Naibai, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic936, Life is Short, Fireball X, Texas Mike, Edwin Johnson, Kirsten Smith, Alexander Main, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I'm going to hand over to G Plus and Discord so you can enjoy whatever conversation is going on there while I set up for today's live show. Okay.
With moderators, if the Globe Earthers have a moderator in the server, any interruption by the Flat Earther is an interruption, and that's it. But when they do it, they always have a justification for it as to make it okay. You know.
Well, double standards.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Really bad. I was in the after show just a minute ago and seen it.
Yes, the double standards. Oh, 10th here. How you doing? Just lots of
good. Good morning, John, Nathan.
Good. Instant rustly. How you doing?
See, there goes that high-tech system again.
Not high-tech,
hey,
I'm just
Neil.
hearing rustling. Ugh. Anyway, so yes, John. Immediately after starting the show, or not immediately, within a given period of time, Anthony pointed these double standards out to me and said, well, you can't really allow those double standards to be in place for them when they're in the majority, we're in the minority. Really, we should be getting special privileges, not them. Now, off the back of that, I've studied closely their double standards. For example, them claiming people get muted. And instantly, as soon as I go and watch any of their shows, people are getting muted on the Flat Earth side. So it's just a double standard that they like to apply. Now, it amuses me because, like you say, when they're interrupting using what we now term the fundy mute button, I can take control of that. But they don't like that because they've got a justification for interrupting us non-stop when we're trying to get our point across. And of course, it's deemed unreasonable when we interrupt their begging the question, they're affirming the consequent, whatever fallacy they've started out with in the first breath. It's totally unreasonable to point out that they're starting their premise with the thing they're trying to prove, for example.
Yeah, I noticed one of the big things they like to do is take an analogy you use to try to prove a point, and then they'll address the analogy instead of the point.
An obfuscation tactic, indeed.
That's frustrating too. I don't know, I've just started noticing a lot of things that I guess that I used to do and seeing other people doing it. I wish there was a way to highlight it more.
You're great. Don't stop being you. That's how you highlight it.
Yeah, he's interrupting me. Well, yeah, he's interrupting you, but why is he interrupting you? You've said something that he disagrees with. I guess I'm trying to look at it from a more objective position now. Oh, it hurts my head sometimes.
Yeah, they should learn finer techniques like rustling paper.
Oh, they use all those too. No, they use all those as well. So it's not like it's beyond them to cause a lot of background distortion just to distract from whatever point's being made. The general ejaculation from a fundy white knighting, we call that, is almost involuntary on their part. They can't help it. They know when they're getting a pummeling and they can't help but interject.
Well, look at Rumpus. He kept saying to Brian the other day, I can't hear your first sentence. And that's how he was stopping it, by just keep saying, I can't hear what you're saying. Well, you can't hear what he's saying because you're talking.
Yeah, and I pointed that out for the audience. That's all you can do. But obviously that all takes time and takes you away from the point, which could also simultaneously be their objective. Well, if you can get me, to explain to the audience at length what's happening in terms of his obfuscation technique, that also obfuscates the point. That's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with people who are on the losing side of the argument, and they have to use tactics against a winning argument, or in defence of a claim that can't be defended on their side. What are they going to do? Well, they've got to do something, right?
How about come up with a good point? How about answer one of the housekeeping questions?
They can't. Therein lies the end of their argument. So if you're in cognitive dissonance at that moment, you're going to rebel against it. And that's precisely what they do.
Yeah, but shouldn't something click in? Like, if you can't answer these questions, shouldn't something click like, hey, maybe I'm on the wrong side here?
No, what they tell themselves is, while I might not be able to answer this question, somebody somewhere obviously has, because everybody in the Western world believes they're on a sphere, as do I. And the fact that I can't answer this question and have been shown logical inconsistency doesn't mean that someone else couldn't overcome it if I was to research it further. But given that everyone else automatically believes it anyway, why bother? Just tell the other person that they don't understand the bit that they haven't researched and assume is out there for them.
Exactly, that's it. Shit.
Well, they're arguing from a premise of hope, because they know that when, like, the Rumpus says, second law of thermodynamics doesn't apply to the Earth. Well, he's too smart to know that that just comes out really funny. So they're hoping that somewhere higher up it doesn't apply to the Earth.
No, he just means his model. When he says the Earth, he means his model. That's all it means.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But that, when I say model, when I say Earth, I'm meaning model too, because that's all they got. But they reified into reality, right? They reified that model into reality. So model, reality, it's all the same thing to them.
Well, now it's just downward vector. Like, it's obvious to me, and like, I don't get it.
Now, that's an internal battle if you're referring to the current trench level discussion that's happening purely because there's very little challenge coming from the globe side. I mean, there's two different levels to that. There's any scientific evidence of gravity, which is directed squarely at the assertion the Western world are under, which is that there's a non-force force that you can think of as a force that in the trench level holds gas here without containment. Well, that's all nonsense. They don't have any force. It's not a force. It's been superseded as a force 106 years ago. So, no. But the people on our side who think there's ultimately a downward bias, again, no, there isn't. Because gas debunks that. It's not got any downward bias. So that's the end of that discussion, as far as I'm concerned.
Right, but they're claiming that everything else besides gas goes down.
So what?
Well, that's medium related, though.
So what?
I agree.
But even if that was the case, so what? Everything apart from the other stuff, well, then there's no bias. If there's a bias, there's a bias. Well,
so if there's one thing, then you can't say everything goes down, correct?
It's not a bias then, is it?
Right.
Right. That stuff isn't biased downwards then, because you can debunk it with gas, and to assert, well, everything apart from gas, well then, what, it's a selective downward force? No.
Well, it's like the black swan, you only need one.
Yeah, but we have tons. But we only need one, I understand, but there is tons. I was looking at some the other day, it was like, wow, there's so many.
All the pictures and videos of things that should be hidden that weren't hidden were all black swans too. We just didn't call them black swans at the day.
Yeah, if the horizon was beyond where it should have been physically, geometrically on a sphere, then it's a black swan. Because the physical parameters can't be beyond where they say they are geometrically. That's not possible. And the response to that is no, it is possible. It's optically being bent, refracted, into a different position. Well, at that point, you've no longer got any way of ascertaining the R value, because you no longer, your declaration that it's refracted is a declaration that it's non-physical. Well, if it's non-physical, it's not a sphere edge. So it's the end of the argument.
So, Nathan, let's drill down a little deeper, because let me ask a question that's been hovering, at least in my mind. Why is it important for someone to have a universal down bias?
I don't know. I've not got a good answer for that. I don't know.
But there's got to be a reason why there's an ongoing debate on this.
Well,
long-held
if you
belief.
live on a sphere,
Go on, John.
if you live on a sphere, gravity is what holds you to that sphere. It's what created that sphere. If you lived on a sphere.
Okay, but when that's flat earthers fighting for it, who don't believe they live on a sphere, what is there to discover or to say this is the antecedent for that? Now, what is the that?
Their belief that
I
all
think
things
it's
go
the
down.
dome.
Their belief that it all goes down, and ignorance of the fact that that isn't the case. That's all it is. They're under the misapprehension that there's a downward bias. You know, their claim is their belief.
So basically, it's just, hey, we've discovered that all things go down, and we don't tie it to anything else, and this is what
Not
we
exactly.
believe.
No. When you start with the presupposition that things are going towards the ground with a bias, then you set forth on justifying why you have that belief. It's an affirming the consequent, starting with a begging the question fallacy. Start with the premise you're trying to prove. All things go down. There's a downward bias. Whatever way you want to phrase it, it doesn't matter. Yeah? An overriding down. More down than up. It doesn't matter. That's the premise that you need to first prove. But they don't. They assume it. So if all things go down, then it's going to be an electrostatic, magnetic, whatever force they assert to cause that assumption that things go down. But they don't. Some things are going up. So it's nonsense.
Right. No, I get it. I get all that and how they start with begging the question. I'm just trying to see what's the end game for that belief. Well, what is it going to do? I mean, do they have to prove that there's got to be something for light to travel, like a medium? Is that their point, or what is it?
I didn't get the connection with Ether Wars.
I'll tell you
either.
what it is. They just can't handle something as simple as the heavier things come down. Like, that's all there is to it. If it's heavier than the medium it's in, it's going to come down, right? It's simple.
Yes.
Well, just
it's going to have to get up there first.
Well, go on, John. I'll say what I got to say later.
I said it's going to have to get up there first before it can come down.
Yeah. All right. So just on the sidelines, listening to the back and forth. Okay. Let's say it is what they say. So what? You still need to prove it, and you haven't. So just prove it. I mean, instead of saying it's a negligible force and relative density, disequilibrium is the vast majority of what we experience. But this is true too, but it's very negligible. Well, then why are you fighting so hard for it if it's so negligible?
Because the smartest guy on the block says it is.
Yeah, but to what end?
I keep telling you, to justify the presupposition in the first instance. That's why I keep telling you.
Right, but the presupposition in the first instance, to what end?
Hold on, who is that? Go ahead.
Yeah, and to keep water on the outside of a ball.
No, we're asking why the flat earthers want this.
Oh.
Well, give us your opinion. Go on, as you've interjected, Rams. Why do you think flat earthers would want this? My assertion is simple. Because they've got a presupposition in the first instance that there's a downward bias. Simple as that. So it's a justification for the presupposition. That's it. What do you think? Why would flat earthers want to hold on to this downward bias nonsense?
Well, I think it's when the argument gets into the relative density, which a lot of flat earthers do. They want to. They're then asked, then why that axis of up and down?
What do you mean? Why that axis of up and down?
That's where the desire for that to be answered.
That's relative. That's relative to you and the medium you're in. You're asking specifically. Go on.
I'll give you, for instance, Helio. One time I got into it with him, and he kept insisting, yeah, but if your table was not there, that vase that you have on your table will accelerate down. It's just being stopped by the table.
Okay, and if the balloon that's underneath the table didn't have the table there, it'd be stuck to the ceiling. So what?
Yeah, I mean, that's so plain when you can see both sides like that, and we have over the last week or so. So, like, okay, they're both right. So
no, they can't be both right, because in order for the explanation, at least on the globe side, to make sense, you need the disequilibrium to be caused by the gas being pulled down, forcing the lighter gas, in the case of the balloon helium, to be forced up, which means that gas must be going down, go boom, boom.
Right, but that's the heliocentric. We're talking the flat Earth. So if I put a barrier between...
Well, when it comes to the flat Earth, they just deny it. Well, I don't deny that gas expands in all directions. Well, then you've completely disavowed your own argument. No bias, then. That's where we get to the flat earthers on the side of the argument that there's a downward bias. They concede that gas isn't doing the downward bias thing, but yet still have a contradictory belief. You know, they're basically suffering cognitive dissonance. That's it. There's no other explanation for it. You can't hold both as true at the same time.
Well, I was on that show when Whitsitt got on with Nathan Thompson, and I only heard it once. I didn't watch the repeat because it was so obvious, because that's exactly what you brought to their attention.
You should have named that show Whitsitt Gets It.
I did name that show Whitsitt Gets It. That's his name, though, right? Well, his handle.
Well, no, Whitsitt Gets It from Nathan. But
yeah, he's picked a poor choice, because you don't have to put in much effort regardless of which side you're arguing. I could phrase that, Whitsitt Gets It, i.e. he understands. Or Whitsitt Gets It, as in got a pummeling. Doesn't take any effort to read it whichever way you like. Maybe that's the intention, I don't know. I don't really care.
Hold on, the second one fits better. He got a pummeling.
Depends on the circumstances, though, right? Maybe that's why he picked it. Who knows why Whitsitt picked it?
Well, I'll tell you, I think the flat earthers are arguing this as a residual of, education and gravity. Like, they've been, we were all taught gravity. The people that went into physics more kind of got it shoved down their throats. But I think that's what it is. It's a residual attempt to explain something that's not there.
Exactly. That's what I attributed to the haters after the fact. So several people came out after the fact giving me praise and putting down Nathan and Whitsitt. It's like, no, you're talking about a residual, as you've described it, of a very strong piece of heliocentric programming that leaves you with an assumption of a bias that isn't really there. And that is difficult to shed. Well, so
now
what?
That
does
answered
that make them...
my question.
Just before you do, does that make them shills? Does that make them dishonest? No, not at all. Give them a break. God's sake. Go on, 10th.
No, I was just saying, John just answered my question, the way he phrased it. That's the reasoning behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a residual thing. I had a little bit of it. Like, I would think, if there is no downward direction, why don't you stand on your head then, and say obviously stupid things like that,
Sure. There's all sorts of aspects of stuff that you may hang on to that you didn't realise was a belief until you come to a subject and then start investigating it. Until you throw it all out all at once, if you are to do that, you've still got all sorts of crazy stuff in your head that you, up until that point, appreciated was real and true, and why would you ever question it? So, for example, David Weiss, DITRH. When he came to the subject, he didn't appreciate that space was fake, or that we hadn't landed on the moon. That came later, as strange as that may sound. But so what? Does it matter which order it comes into your head at? It doesn't matter in the slightest, in my opinion. It's just like,
No, it doesn't matter, because sometimes you're so focused on the topic that the people who are talking about that very topic are 5 points. If you say what are the 5 points prior to that, they know that there's no space, there's no landing on the moon. But now it's a different topic related to having those things creating a base of conversation where someone just comes in and they miss those 5 points and they say yeah, and then they later, if they stick to the show, they, oh my gosh, if this is true, then that's got to be true. Oh my, they did land on the, so it comes a little later, but it still comes.
Right, and the same is true the other way around. There's plenty of people out there who appreciate that the cinematography presented to claim we were standing on a light in the sky at some stage in the 60s and 70s, then they appreciate that's not real for whatever reason, and then in their own mind either make up a justifiable reason why they had to lie, but still have that belief that there's a light in the sky that's actually a rock, and simultaneously deny any aspect of heliocentrism that we deny. So no. In other words, become a flat Earth denier. So that's a similar thing, right? Recognizing that they've lied about certain aspects of the sky might not necessarily lead you to realize that the sky is not a vacuum. But you might realize they've faked a lot of what they say the sky is, but still think it's a space for gas to fill, and we're okay with that, even though it violates the second law of thermodynamics. People reach different points in their journey at different stages.
But Enough Alive tells you that if you look at water, and I think Anthony brought this up, or you did, there's certain things that sink in water, there's certain things that float in water, there's certain things that go up in air, there's certain things that come down because the medium of air is lighter and the objects are more denser. So when you think about a piece of steel, it's going to sink in water, but if you shape it into a hull and can cause displacement, then you got a ship. So now it's not sinking. Now you think about that same piece of steel, it's going to fall in air unless you put an engine on it, make a plane and wings, and cause the Bernoulli effect. So isn't it obvious?
Clearly not.
I thought I lost the show. It got so quiet.
No, just didn't get a response from anybody.
Damn it, you see that every day.
I think once the holiday season's over, we'll get the fundies returning.
Yeah, maybe.
Sorry about that, 10th. I was changing a diaper, buddy.
It's all right, John.
Thanks for the info.
That's great.
Good morning, guys.
Hey,
Well, I was
Chuck.
good morning. I was going to say one of the things I like so much about this subject is the way that people cognitively process the information that they get, Oh!
Well, I was watching a golf tournament on the weekend, and the announcer, and they always say it, not just this one announcer. Oh, well, he just got it up there, and then gravity did the rest.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like they want to give gravity credit for everything, don't they?
Yeah.
Wow. Stranger danger. Can you pop yourself on mute? There, or you're banging.
And then when you
Stranger danger. Can you
yeah,
pop
and then
yourself on
when
mute,
you
please? Oh, thank you.
stranger danger. Yeah, and then when you see people with a big belly, they go, "Yeah, it's gravity's fault." They go, "No, you're just eating too much."
But this
Well,
is a good
gravity's
explanation,
the
right?
root cause in their model.
I was just going to say,
Sorry.
John, when it comes to his question, well, why would these people on our side be so, ingrained to defend something that isn't real? It's because it's so ingrained into the general doctrine that it's the answer for everything. It's always got to have an explanation tied into gravity somewhere. Well, that's intentional. It's required in the heliocentric model, and it has to be wrapped up in doublespeak because it's not actually a force in their current reification. But for us, it just means we've been subjected to it for our entire life for various explanations for things that aren't necessarily in any way linked to a downward bias. Now, if something is going down, and they start attributing something that's always there to something that goes down, it seems to make sense, until you point out that not everything goes down. And then it all falls to pieces. But that doesn't mean to say that the people who have gone through, like we all have, the majority of our life, hearing that word over and over again, contextually and incontextually correct, you're not going to be able to shed that easily.
Yeah, it's pretty ingrained in there. It was one of the things that I had trouble with, like really bad. Had trouble with.
What, relinquishing it or understanding how it worked or what?
Yeah, I'm letting it go. Just letting the whole thing go. Like I thought there's got to be something salvageable in this. The whole thing just can't be a red herring, you know?
Yeah, the whole thing's based on an assumption that's false. But generally, for most things, most people see stuff just going down, right? No, generally speaking, you don't see anything going down. Nothing's moving anywhere. It's all in equilibrium. It's all in harmony. And then you look at things like gas cycles, and gas is going up to the clouds and coming back down again in a cycle. You go, okay, but what if I pick something up? It's normally their next move on the heliocentric side. To justify stuff always going down. You know, and in response, we let go of a helium balloon and suddenly that argument falls to pieces.
Well, then comes the tricky question of what's motivating this fairy tale story being, pushed on us all.
Required. It's a trench level explanation for almost everything, as we were just discussing. Seems to be the case that every single magic trick that needs an explanation has gravity at the heart of it. So therefore it's required to explain a lot of stuff that doesn't necessarily need explaining in the first instance, or moreover requires explaining when it's attached to an idea that you're on this philosophical model called the globe. Therefore it needs explanation, so you've got to have something to pull out the magic hat to explain it with, and gravity is very useful to do all of that in almost every instance. So that's why it's required for them to justify a lot of nonsense that doesn't work. So down at trench level, even though we point out that their own rhetoric is gravity is not a force, they use it as a force to hold gas here in violation of natural law. So, it's used as a trick because they can say it. Well, why do we have gas here if the sky is a vacuum, a space for gas to fill? Well, we've got gravity. What, a downward bias? Well, gas is expanding in all directions. It's not biased downwards. Yeah, but gravity is pulling it downwards. But no, it isn't. It's expanding. And so you go on. You're arguing about a non-force force that you can think of as a force rather than the fact that natural law dictates that if the sky was a vacuum, the gas would fill the space. Much better to argue about a non-force force that you can think of as a force that isn't really a force. It's an emergent force that isn't really a force. Whatever you want to say, better to argue about that than the natural law violation that is a sky vacuum. Just a good distraction technique with something that isn't really real, but you can kind of justify as being real. Argue about that.
Was that Rams who asked that question?
Rams, yeah.
Yeah. Can I give my comment to Rams?
Yeah, feel free.
Yeah. So Rams, my opinion is that this was either a very clumsy model that they, from way back then, decided to say this is our reality, and everyone bought it up until good questions were being asked, like how can you have gas pressure next to a vacuum of space and all these different things. Or it was purposely designed because they could fit it into their evolutionary model as evolution came afterwards, obviously. But the whole point is to take away attention from a creator. So it's either well designed to take attention away from a creator, and then all these things kind of go on to help it, like evolution and blah, blah, blah. Or it was just so clumsy when they got together. It looks like, the moon looks like a sphere, so we must be a sphere. But they really didn't think about it. And then now we're just destroying it. And these guys have to scramble to keep it.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected. And if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by the Adam Meakin, 10th Man, Neil, and a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome one and all.
Good afternoon.
Good morning, everybody.
Good day.
Morning.
Hello.
Hello, good morning, welcome one and all. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon formerly known as Earth curvature?
Nonsense.
I agree. Nonsense.
That's 3. No.
A couple of newbies
I've
in
never seen
Discord,
it.
so
That's one.
if Stranger Danger sorted out his mic and isn't causing a load of background noise. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
More nonsense.
More nonsense is right.
I've never experienced it, observed it, or seen anyone prove it.
I
Feeling
say
fair.
we call it nonsense because it's nonsense.
Go ahead, Daddy.
Yo, is this the debate line or whatever? I have a flat Earth friend that was like, "Yo, I want you to debate this guy." So here I am.
Okay.
So in order for me to have a proper discourse with you, what is your model of the flat Earth?
Models are
'Cause
pseudoscience. Before we go
There's
on,
a
Daddy.
lot of different types of flat Earth models.
Before you start, Daddy, hello. Before you launch into a load of
Yeah.
questions, what we do at the beginning of each of these shows is we ask a series of questions to people who believe they're on a sphere. Now, I don't know if you heard the first question, which would be any evidence that we have a physical sphere edge for a horizon.
Do we have a sphere edge for a horizon?
Yeah. Can you evidence that the horizon is a physical edge of a sphere?
So I understand you have 1,300 episodes. If you always guide these conversations and only ask the same questions over and over again, you're going to get the same result. It's literally your job. You have 1,300 episodes.
Okay,
I need to
and-
know your model before I can
No worries.
debate or anything.
Okay,
I
I'll
will
try
say,
again.
yes,
No
I
worries.
believe
You said
can
that's the
see
second time. No
horizon
worries. I'll
lines.
answer you. Okay, you asked for a model, but we don't
Yeah.
live on a model. That would be called a reification fallacy. Can you pop yourself on mute while I talk to you, Daddy, or turn down your speakers? You're causing feedback. Just pop yourself on mute, thanks. We don't live on a model. To assert that the model is the terrain that we're standing on is called a reification fallacy. Feel free to look it up. But we don't live on a model, so who cares if I've got a model or not? You, on the other hand, have a model called the heliocentric model, which you do think is the world we are standing on. I don't have a model. I'm sorry to disappoint you,
You're
but we
saying
don't stand on a
you
model.
don't have a model. So how am I supposed to argue with you? If you don't have a better model to replace the one I have, then what's the point of having a discussion?
Guys
right?
in G+,
If
Adam, can you mute,
In
please?
science, you have to present an idea that supersedes and better explains the environment that we are currently living in order to have any advancement, right?
Okay,
If you're not
models-
presenting an idea, how am I supposed to argue against it?
You don't have to do anything, my friend. You've chosen to come here. You don't have to argue against anything I say. You can just leave if you don't want to argue against it. However, models...
I mean-
do you want to pop yourself on mute when I'm responding to you, rather than just talking through me immediately? Thank you. So, as I've just stated, models aren't what we're standing on, and you've asserted that in order to be science, I need to give you a model. Now, that would clearly demonstrate to me and a lot of my audience, and definitely all of my panel, that you don't know what science is. Now, science is the establishment of cause for phenomena through the scientific method. It's not models. Models, when asserted as science, as you have just done, automatically become pseudoscience, because you haven't gone through the scientific method to establish a model, correlative only. We're not standing on a model, and I'm still talking. My friend, this is going to be an unsuccessful debate if you immediately talk through me when I make my conclusions. So, third time. Models are pseudoscience, definitely not cause and effect through the scientific method, and we're not standing on a model. That's a reification fallacy. Maybe you'd like to ask for a fourth time if I'm going to give you a new one, a false dichotomy to offer. That would be your model, not that we're standing on it, versus my model that we're not standing on, to decide which one's reality. False dichotomy fallacy. Feel free to listen back after the fact to all the fallacies you've used, maybe not acknowledge a single one of them, and ask me again if I've got a model.
5 minutes, you're not going to really have a debate. Like, if you want to have a real discussion, you need to explain to me how you believe the world works. You saying the Earth is flat. Okay, that is one part of your understanding, right? How does gravity work in your understanding? How does atmosphere work? How does...
You want to stick with one at a time? Do you want to... Mate, what you're doing is scattergunning with multiple questions. So far, you've said it's not a debate, but you haven't acknowledged a single point I'd made. For example, you've demanded I give you a model, and I've pointed out several reasons why that wouldn't be necessary, but you've not acknowledged any of them. So yeah, this isn't a debate because you're not, and you're talking through me again, like a fundy who's getting annoyed. Yeah, I'm making my point now. You need to pop yourself on mute while I talk like I do for you. Thank you. So you've not acknowledged any of the points that I've rebutted and refuted your claim that I must give you a model with. You've just moved on to asking me new questions about justification for why it's flat and various other things that I didn't pay attention to because I didn't get to the first one. So I'd like to deal with one thing at a time, but first I'd like an acknowledgement of the points I've refuted you with. Can you do that before I go on to justify why I say it's flat? Please.
All right, so let's consider. If I present to you a model and I say, I believe that the Earth is round and I believe that gravity exists, blah, 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 you have to assert what you believe so that I can and you can discuss and refute each other, right?
No, I don't have to give you a claim in order to refute what you claim. I can just take a giant steaming dump on your belief that we're on a sphere based on your thoughts and feelings that it's science to assert models and ignore me pointing out that that's pseudoscience because it hasn't adhered to the scientific method, something you're still yet to acknowledge in any way, shape or form. You are, however, continually talking through me while I point these things out to you, like a triggered zealot who wants to talk through the points you're yet to acknowledge. So you're a triggered fundy who's talking through me. Typical behaviour of a fundy, not acknowledging what I've stated in terms of his pseudoscience assertion, not acknowledging his false dichotomy fallacy, not acknowledging that he hasn't adhered to the scientific method. None of that's being acknowledged in any way, mate.
You're speaking about. I think we need to have a real discussion, right?
I am having a discussion. I'm discussing how your pseudoscience belief in models hasn't adhered to the scientific method. You're just yet to acknowledge any of that.
Are you or are you not going to acknowledge that in order to have a real discussion, we need to discuss what each side believes in first?
Okay.
How
You can
about
ask.
scientific facts?
Well, why don't you ask?
Oh, what? I asked you, okay, so some flat earthers don't even believe in gravity, right? So
Right, why is this now a baseless generalization stereotyping fallacy about what some flat earthers believe? That's not a question about what I believe. That's a baseless generalization stereotyping fallacy. So far, you have used 5 fallacies, my friend. You're not doing very well.
I mean, you're saying I'm not doing well, but...
You're not! You keep using fallacies. You've just used what is known as a baseless generalization and stereotyping fallacy about what some flat earthers believe. I'm not some flat earthers. That's a generalization stereotyping fallacy, you stupid idiot. Now, if you want to claim you're doing well when I'm absolutely annihilating you, then you can delude yourself into such a belief. It's not the case.
I think that I'm losing this argument.
You are.
You have 1,300 episodes, maybe 1,000 views on each video.
What?
You really think that people listen to you?
You're listening to
your
me
method
right
of
now.
debate is speak over people.
Another generalization, stereotyping fallacy. People are listening to me. There's an audience right now, and you, specifically you, are debunking that. Because you're not really listening to me, you're talking through me. But nevertheless, I'm still pummeling you. You don't have to believe it's the case. You don't have to like it's the case. It is the case.
Yeah.
You've used nothing but fallacy so far.
Can I add something
You
to that,
haven't
Nathan?
once described to me how you believe the model works, right?
What model? You've not acknowledged what I've already defeated 5 times without acknowledgement. Frustrating, irritating, lots of talking while I'm pointing it out for the 6th time. Yeah, models are pseudoscience. They haven't adhered to the scientific method. Repeat after me. Models are pseudoscience. They have not adhered to the scientific method. Do you understand my point, or are you going to ignore it continually?
I don't think you understand.
Oh, I don't understand when you're asserting that models are science and I'm pointing out they're not. They haven't adhered to the method and you're not acknowledging it. I don't understand. No. Incorrect.
Method of science. Let's be honest. You're not presenting any ideas. All you're doing.
Who cares about ideas? We ask for scientific evidence of gravity. Do you have any scientific evidence of gravity? Something you've claimed on 3 separate occasions?
Sorry, what'd you say?
Scientific evidence of gravity. Do you have any? You've claimed it 3 times.
I mean, there's been plenty of experiments where they proved that there is a force
Excellent.
that is exerted by objects with mass.
Name one
right?
experiment. What's an experiment, first of all? What do you think an experiment is?
Listen to you. You can't even describe...
Oi, moron. What is an experiment? You have said there are numerous experiments. What's an experiment? You tell us.
There was an experiment where...
No, not what there was. What is an experiment? Try to listen. Define experiment.
Listen to yourself. We're not discussing what...
We're discussing scientific evidence of gravity. You said there's numerous experiments. Now I want you to define what that is. Define experiment.
Windy roads when we can discuss the real crux of the issue.
Yeah, we want scientific proof of gravity. And you've said there's numerous experiments. I know you don't know what that means, and you're admirably demonstrating it by obfuscation right now. Define experiment.
Let's hear your
Let's go really high-pitched! No, just define experiment, you idiot.
Hear yourself.
Yeah, I can hear myself. Yeah, I can hear myself really clearly, sitting here, calm, laid back in my nice comfy chair with a cup of coffee, asking a clown who said there's numerous experiments and says that models are science to define experiment, and you're not.
Okay, but your experiment
I haven't claimed any experiment. That's called a burden of proof reversal fallacy. You have claimed there are numerous experiments, so don't now bark on about my experiment. I haven't claimed any. You said there's numerous experiments. We know you don't know what an experiment is. That's why we're asking you to define it.
Anything, so how am I supposed to debate you, right?
Yeah, you can't debate me. You're losing really badly. I'm asking you to define a word you've used. That would be experiment. Go.
I'm not going to define words.
Yeah, why use them then? Don't use words you can't define, you moron.
I'm not. I can define it, but I'm not going to. I don't.
Go, define experiment. You've said there's numerous, so define it.
Down instead of talking about what we're here to talk about.
We're here to talk about the scientific validity offered to the claim you made that there is gravity. We're asking for scientific validity, and you've said there's numerous experiments. You don't even know what the word means.
Do you want me to describe the
I want you to define experiment. Just do it.
No, I'm not going to.
No. Do you think you're winning? Do you think you're winning?
Bad, mate.
This is you winning?
Yeah. I know what experiment means.
Let's hear your definition, and I'll see if I agree with it.
Oh, the
How about that?
establishment. The establishment of cause by way of systematic experimentation based on a hypothesis.
That sounds good.
Yeah, that's what an experiment would be. Yeah, it sounds good. It also sounds like I'm winning. It also sounds like you haven't got the vaguest clue what the words you use mean, and I do. So yeah, I am winning, mate. You, on the other hand, are getting an absolute pummeling from a flat earther, which is why your mate sent you here, to get annihilated by someone who knows what they're talking about. Unlike you, who's got a fundy belief in gravity, which we're asking for scientific validity for, and you don't even know what an experiment is. That's the reality of your situation, mate.
talked for about 15 minutes now, right?
Yeah, I will. I'm the one who's the most educated in this regard. You, on the other hand, are a clown who's been sent here by a mate so they can laugh at you when you get annihilated.
Let's be honest. We've talked for 15 minutes, and you've always constantly mired the conversation down these windy roads. What's an experiment?
You said the word! You said there was numerous experiments, and I'm taking us down a windy road about experiments. You're the one who said it.
You need to describe...
You need to clarify the words you don't understand, which I do. Don't try and act smart here. Don't talk about experiments. You don't even know what it means. Accept it, clown.
All right, listen.
No, not all right. I'm not going to listen to you anymore. You are ignorant. You've come here barking on about experiments, numerous experiments for gravity. You don't have any. You don't even know what the word means. Yet you think I need to listen to you. Wrong. You need to listen to me. When I tell you the world is flat, measured flat, observably flat, your philosophy that you're on a sphere is nothing more than a model you've reified, and then demand I give you false dichotomy models to compare with. No, mate, you'll listen to me.
Where have you measured that it's flat?
Oh, surveyors measure it flat.
Said, ooh, it's flat?
Surveyors measure it flat. Are you deaf?
How are you measuring it? What is your method of measuring the Earth being flat?
Oh, with rulers and shit.
How
How'd you think, you idiot? Do you know what surveying is? Do you know what a surveyor is, you complete clown?
You said what?
Do you know what a surveyor is?
Yes, I do.
They measure it flat. It's just that simple. Now, there's also a type of surveyor that assumes the world is spherical and assumes a zenith. Do you know what a zenith is?
All right, listen here.
No, I'm asking if you know what a zenith is, given that you know what surveyors do. You'd know what a zenith is, and the globe-assuming fundies who assume they're on a sphere before they measure it flat take a zenith measurement, and I'm asking if you know what that is.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you. Say that again.
What's a zenith?
What is a zenith? Why do you constantly go down these miry roads?
Oh, because you asked how I know it's flat, and I pointed out that it's measured flat. I'm also pointing out the way that people who measure it flat have this weaselly, windy road of assuming it's spherical prior to measuring it flat. You asked. I'm telling you.
Sorry, I'm reading the chat.
Oh, well then get lost. So you're no longer any use to us. Get lost. We'll continue with housekeeping.
Nathan,
Daddy's no longer any use.
How dare you try to explain something
lost.
that's involved in the
This
discussion?
is what they have? This is it? My goodness.
Well, we didn't.
He
we
only
didn't
said
have.
he knew what it is, so why would you then ask a question to confirm that he actually knows what it is? You know, that's unreasonable, right?
Going
By
back,
the way, Nathan, that
go
was
and argue with the
outstanding.
peanut gallery in chat. That's where you belong, my friend. You're not worthy of discussing this here. You're a clown. So don't tell me you're looking at the chat while I'm annihilating your arguments that you're not acknowledging. Just go and deal with the peanut gallery in chat.
Well, you said in the pre-show
was
that the
failing
ballers
pretty
probably
bad.
taking the holidays off, except for this guy.
I got a question. Did anybody actually ask him to define gravity before going on for scientific
You know what
evidence?
an
about it?
experiment is, Arwen?
I know, but before, did anybody ask him if he even knows what gravity is? Because I'll bet you he'll define it incorrectly.
Probably.
He didn't define anything, Arvin. That was the whole thing. Every time he used the word, and Nathan said, "Well, why don't you define that first?" He didn't even get past the first word. Why would Nathan keep letting him talk about second, third, or fourth word when he hasn't conceded on the first?
Yeah, they want to skip past all the fallacies. I noticed that.
That's a good example of good mates. He properly set his pal up there, didn't he? He's rather than argue flat earth with him, he sent him in here.
He sent them into the lion's den.
Quick shout out to Alexander for hitting the super chat. Really appreciate your support. Can we continue with housekeeping? We're not even halfway through the show, so it seems reasonable to actually get the housekeeping questions asked and answered. Ugh. So Daddy wants to come back in. You're not going to dominate the... Let's just take him off mute. Right, you've come back in, Daddy. You're not going to dominate the conversation. Right? I'll give you one opportunity to shut up and listen. If you try and dominate this conversation, given that I've just
channel, you probably said a bunch of nonsense while I was deafened.
Now he's just going to obviously share his pain on mute because he can't cope with just answering a few of our questions, given that I've given him about 15 minutes of my time. No, he can't cope with that. He'd rather just talk through me continually because he's triggered. No worries. Be excluded till he can calm down. I'll try again in 2 or 3 minutes. Right, we got to axial rotation. We only got through 2 questions. Axial rotation of the Earth-based variety. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
No evidence for that.
There's only apparent distance to the sun. Because everything about the sun is apparent and not proven to be physical or in a Euclidean specific location.
Although we had it in the discussion.
No scientific evidence for the actual distance to the sun.
Well, it's not a scientific question, but no measured distance. It's an intangible object. We covered this with Daddy. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
No.
What is gravity?
What is gravity? Correct.
Sorry, what? Gravity? You saying? I didn't say that I was going to present to you proof of gravity. I want to ask you the very basic...
Don't care what you want to ask, dickhead. We're asking a series of questions which you need to answer us on. We've given you 15 minutes of your time now. You need to shut up. Shout out to P1 Punch 3R. Hope I've said that right. They can't cope with the annihilation. Merry Christmas, FED crew. Really appreciate your support. Thank you very much indeed. So we're asking for scientific evidence of gravity. That's the only thing we're interested in. Has anybody got any scientific evidence of gravity?
I mean, yeah, they did an experiment. It's pretty easy.
So what is gravity then?
Gravity is the force of mass-having objects attracted to other mass-having objects.
Wrong. That's
Haven't you heard gravity's not a force?
Hold on, let's just correct this guy, see if he can calm down for a second and
Mire people at
No, it's just going to fundy mute and rumpus. We're trying to correct you. Can you listen for a second, please, Daddy? Thank you. So no, what you've just stated is incorrect. That's 105 years out of date. That's Reverend John Michell, Cavendish gravity, CV Boys. It's also incorrectly identified as Newtonian gravity. It is 106 years out of date. The idea that mass attracts mass, Newtonian gravity, you are wrong. Do you understand, Daddy?
Also, Newton never claimed...
I'm not wrong, but let's hear what your definition is. You want to mire the conversation in definitions. Let's do it. What do you believe gravity is?
You said it's mass attracting mass, and I pointed out, based on your incorrect assertion that it was mass attracting mass, that is CV Boys, Reverend John Michell, Cavendish gravity, incorrectly named Newtonian gravity, that is 106 years out of date. Do you understand?
Listen, saying, do you understand?
No, he doesn't understand. Yeah, it was replaced 106 years ago by Einsteinian bending of pseudo-Riemannian force space. Now, while I'm saying this, I know you're not listening to a word of it, but it's been superseded by Einstein 106 years ago, mate. So you are just wrong. You're being educated by flat earthers about your own nonsense.
Einstein existed 106 years ago?
You're just talking through me because you're a triggered fundy. I'm pointing out that your rhetoric that you just stated with mass attracting mass is incorrect. 106 years out of date. Now superseded by Einsteinian bending pseudo-Riemannian force space. That would be space and time bending, not mass attracting mass. You are just wrong and having to be educated in your own nonsense by flat earthers. So sit down, shut up. We're asking for scientific evidence. You don't have any.
Let's be honest here. You can say that it's not mass attracting mass.
It isn't. Superseded by Einstein 106 years ago. Sit down and shut up.
So, no, but the thing is...
No. Sit down, shut up. I don't want to have to shut you up. If you want to continue to be a part of this conversation, you need to accept when you're wrong, right? Don't just bark through us constantly. You've been corrected. Understand that you are ignorant in this regard. You don't even know what gravity you're claiming. When we point out how wrong you are, you just say no. Now sit down and shut up.
You're constantly miring the conversation into definition.
Wow, last chance. You're going to calm down, Daddy, or I'm going to have to remove you from the conversation again.
you're still.
My God, these people are intolerable. When they're proven wrong, they just cannot bear it, can they?
Did he leave the channel? Oh, you're still constantly miring the conversation into definitions, right?
What definitions are based on what you claim? We asked you what gravity. Arwin asked what gravity. You said mass attracting mass. You are simply incorrect.
So you're saying that you are correct. You're saying that
No. Are you deaf? We are saying you are wrong. Are you deaf?
How can I be wrong if...
Because it's not mass attracting mass. It was replaced 106 years ago by the bending of pseudo-Ramonian force space. That is now the 4th time I have told you.
How have you experimentally proven this?
We're asking for the experimental validity for this nonsense you claim from you. There isn't any scientific evidence of gravity. Just a lot of idiots like yourself who think 106 years out-of-date rhetoric from CV Boys and Reverend John Michel and Cavendish is their bullshit that forces are involved when it's bending space-time now, and has been for 106 years.
Are you asserting that space-time wasn't bent before 106 years ago?
Bending space-time is a concept. You can't bend space-time. It's a concept, you idiot.
Apparently with gravity you can bend space-time.
No, that's a mathematical construct from Einstein. I also detailed the geometry 4 times. Pseudo-Ramonian force space, my friend. Do you know what that is?
Sure. Listen.
Excellent. Sure. You tell us, what is pseudo-Ramonian force space? Go.
You describe to me what you understand it to be.
Oh, really? What a really useful debating tactic. When I ask you what pseudo-Ramonian force space, maybe you could tell me what you understand it to be.
Yeah, because...
No, mate, you just don't know what it is. Who's rumpusing me from G+? No, mate, you don't know what gravity is. We do, and we know how to annihilate it.
Let's be honest. You haven't presented one fact that you believe to be true.
There is no scientific evidence for gravity. This is a fact, not a belief. A stone cold, 100% fact. There is no scientific evidence for gravity. Fact. How'd you like those apples?
Okay. Well, what do you think causes things to go to the ground?
Things don't go to the ground. I let go of a helium balloon, it goes up.
Okay, you drop...
So it doesn't go to the ground then? So what do I think causes things to go to the ground? My balloon isn't.
Sorry, you were...
What? Annihilating your horse shit that things go to the ground by letting go of a helium balloon?
Your microphone's not so great.
My microphone is excellent. And I'm asking you why you would assert things go to the ground when I can let go of a helium balloon to debunk that assertion and assumption that things go to the ground. They don't. I've debunked that automatic assumption by letting go of a helium balloon, my friend.
If you take a helium balloon and you let it go in a vacuum, it'll fall to the ground.
And inside the balloon, it will be expanded in all directions to fill the availability of the balloon it's contained by. So the gas expands in all directions, not down. It doesn't pool inside the balloon, a container within a container that you've arbitrarily now assigned for some reason I don't really understand. Nevertheless, inside the balloon, the gas expands in all directions to fill the availability of the balloon, not down. It's not pooled at the bottom of the balloon. It's filled the balloon equally. Up.
You're saying if you drop a balloon in a
balloon? No, we're talking about gas. Helium, mate. Helium, gas. Same applies to water vapor. It's going up, mate, not down.
If you take a helium balloon and you put it in a vacuum...
where's a vacuum? This sounds natural. Is this something that occurs in nature?
It doesn't need to occur in nature.
We're only interested in the physical and natural world here. We're realists. We're not interested in the not really is level. We're only interested in the physical and natural world, as is science. You can go and babble on about some man-made nonsense you put together all you like. We, on the other hand, are interested in physical reality. The Earth is obviously and observably flat. You can go off and fiddle around with vacuum chambers all you like. There are no vacuums in nature, and we don't care about what you do in some man-made device. Gas, on the other hand, in this example helium, expands in all directions to fill the availability of the volume it has to fill. In this example, a balloon. It fills it equally, it doesn't pool at the bottom, the helium's not going down.
So are you saying that a balloon wouldn't fall to the ground?
I'm saying there's no scientific evidence of gravity, and your assertion that helium balloons fall to the ground in a vacuum doesn't change the fact that the helium expands in all directions. It doesn't have a downward bias. It fills the balloon that you're exampling as a container within a container that doesn't exist in nature. That's what I'm saying.
It doesn't need to exist in nature.
It does, because we're only interested in the physical and natural world here. We're interested in the obvious and observable nature of reality. That would be that it's flat. And beyond assertions of models and reifications of sky vacuums, all you have is philosophy and pseudoscience. What you don't have is scientific evidence of gravity.
There is scientific evidence of gravity. If you let me describe the experiment that was done, I can describe it to you, and you can believe whether or not you understand it, right?
What's an experiment?
So, I don't remember the name of the experiment, but
what is an experiment? We got here last time, and I had to kick you out, because you just kept on telling me, oh, well, you don't understand. So what's an experiment?
You gonna let me finish? Or are you just going to talk over me and Meyer?
I'll do what I like. It's my show. Didn't you realise that? I want to know what an experiment is. If you're going to detail an experiment, we want to know what an experiment is according to you.
You've had a definition of experiment that I accept. That's fine. Let's continue.
No, I want your definition of an experiment that we will have to accept. Not the other way around, you complete clown. So you need to define what an experiment is if you're going to start detailing one. And we want to agree with your definition, given that we already know you haven't got the vaguest clue what science is. Shout out to Godzilla37. He says, pride never fails to expose the fool.
Okay. Well, the experiment goes like this.
Back off your mic.
You take a...
back off your mic. You're getting very excitable. Can you back off your mic?
I can't hear you. Say that again.
Back off your mic. You're too excited. Try and relax.
I'm speaking at a normal volume. Anyways, you take a wire, you let it drape down, and you have two masses of equal weight at either end of the wire, balanced on a, let's say, a beam of some sort, right?
Yeah, this is Cavendish. I've already told you this is 105, 106 years out of date. This is Cavendish. I said specifically, CV Boys, Reverend John Michel, Cavendish gravity. You're now detailing the Cavendish, quote-unquote, experiment.
Well, you're not letting me finish.
I know what Cavendish is. You're detailing Cavendish. Are you a clown? Are you thick? Do you not realise that I've detailed this 106 years out of date, superseded by Einstein nonsense, and labelled the clown that claimed it by his name? That's Cavendish.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. So I've already pummeled this. You're about to detail a non-experiment that was superseded 106 years ago. I named the clown that came up with the apparatus you're now detailing in my pummeling 7 times now. So don't detail Cavendish. We know what Cavendish is. We've already ascribed his name to the nonsense that's 106 years out of date.
Well, just keep talking.
Yeah, well, it's my show. What, you think you can talk through me with Cavendish descriptions? We've already named and shamed him, mate. It's out of date. 106 years.
Named and shamed?
Yeah, Cavendish. What you're now trying to detail through me like a fundy. Like what, getting to the end of your description of Cavendish is somehow going to not make it 106 years out of date and superseded by Einstein? No, mate.
For viewers that haven't...
Get back off your mic. Yeah? You crazy fundy. Try and control yourself. You don't need to eat your mic. Can you just back off it, please?
I'm explaining the experiment because not all of your...
It's not an experiment. I've already detailed it's superseded. Not an experiment, you just don't like it.
Even now, you still want to talk about definitions.
Yeah, an experiment would be a hypothesis test. And this Cavendish nonsense isn't that. You asked me what an experiment was, I asked you to define it, you failed. I defined it. Now, in a more succinct way that you will not listen to because you're talking constantly, I'll explain it again. It's the establishment of cause and effect based on a hypothesis. That's what an experiment is, a hypothesis test. A Cavendish apparatus isn't the establishment of cause based on natural phenomena with systematic experimentation based on a hypothesis. It hasn't got a valid hypothesis. It's 106 years out of date. You just don't like it.
Okay. What is your explanation for what is happening during that experiment?
Oh, it's just some man-made device made by some nutter called Cavendish. Doesn't prove anything whatsoever. Doesn't weigh the Earth as it was designed to. It's just some nutter in a shed with some balls, asserting that he can measure the Earth's weight.
Nutter in a shed?
Yeah, he's not observing natural phenomena. He's not formulating a hypothesis with independent and dependent variable. It is some nutter in a shed with balls on strings. That's right. It's also been superseded as utter nonsense 106 years ago by Einstein, who describes gravity as the bending of pseudo-Riemannian force space. That's length, breadth, depth, and time, as you didn't know what it was and couldn't define it.
You're still jerking yourself off about...
Get lost. If you're going to tell me I'm jerking myself off with your nonsense I know and you don't. Shout out to James Richard. When you move the helium balloon from the medium of air to the medium of a vacuum, you're going to have a different result. Your claim is gravity, but it's changing of the medium that's the cause. Right, so in that example, the medium's been changed to cause it to go down, go boom, boom, when you've got a gas contained within a helium balloon. Indeed. Shout out to James Richards for the super chat. Really appreciate your support.
Nathan, this guy's a rookie, Nathan.
This is who I'm discussing things with.
Guy's a rookie. Kick him out.
That's all right. You can share his pain. Any evidence of the R value, Earth radius?
I understand this is your job, okay?
Can you share your pain a bit? Can you share your pain on mute?
This is how you make
money. Mate, can you share your pain on mute?
Let's have a good...
Yeah, he's not going to shut up, is he?
Let's not talk about... Okay?
Can you calm down? Can you calm down? Hello? Hello, Cackling Fundy. Can you calm down? Go on mute.
Am I on mute?
No, you're not. Go on mute.
All
Stop cackling. Listen. Mate, you're disturbing the show. Can you shut up? I don't want to have to shut you up.
You still haven't described the very simple thing. You say you know this experiment. You call the guy crazy in a shed, but you won't describe to me what you believe is causing the balls to move when he brings a great weight next to it, right? My assertion is that gravity...
Oh, so you're not going to allow me to explain. Your assertion is going to come immediately after asking me my explanation for your assertion that we've debunked based on the fact it's 106 years out of date, superseded by Einstein. That's not good enough. I should explain a non-phenomena of what happens when a man puts some balls in his shed on strings. That's not a naturally occurring phenomena that needs explanation, my friend. It's outside the remit of science. Now, while I'm explaining this to you, you're a cackling fundy talking through me constantly, not listening to a word I say. So at this point, you don't want to listen anymore. You're just talking through me constantly. You cannot shut up. So I have no choice but to remove you if you can't shut up.
Oh my gosh. Listen to yourself. You still have continuously, for the past 40 minutes, talked about definitions rather than just talked about how you think that experiment works. Right?
It's not an experiment. I keep explaining to you. Just don't shut up and listen to me. I've explained it 8 times. You just don't want to listen.
What? Let's hear it. How do you think that the mass moves when he brings a greater mass next to it?
Yeah, if you knew what an experiment was, I undoubtedly will immediately get interrupted. Of course, immediate interruption from a fundy.
What an experiment was?
Yeah, just get lost, mate. You're not listening to me. You gave me 10 seconds. So you can't be tolerated anymore. You're just so triggered that you're going to talk through every sodding word I reply with. So get lost. When you calm down, I'll take you off mute. If you can continually talk and obfuscate every single reply within 5 seconds of me attempting to, then you just can't be tolerated in the conversation. It's not unreasonable to now shut you out of that by sticking you on mute. You can't control yourself. God's sake. It's not an experiment. It hasn't got a dependent variable. That would be naturally occurring phenomena that you need to figure the cause of by way of experiment. Now, you don't know what an experiment is, so you keep telling me, well, what's the cause of the effect? The effect is a man-made effect, not a natural phenomenon. but you wouldn't understand the vaguest clue. You haven't got the vaguest clue what I'm talking about. We asked you to define experiment. You didn't know. But you still think it's an experiment, even though I've pulled that to pieces. You can't cope with it because you don't know what the words you're using mean. You don't know what science is, and you definitely don't know what an experiment is. So me pulling it apart based on its non-adherence to the scientific method is insufficient for your feeble brain to cope with. You still want me to justify why a man-made device does what it does. Well, because a man made it. Some crackhead put it together in a shed and then said, why does this happen? Well, because you put it together, that's why. We don't observe mass attracting mass in nature. That has been superseded 106 years ago. It's now described as the bending of the fabric of space-time, not mass attracting mass. No definition or justification required for something that's 106 years out of date and definitely not a scientific experiment. Now, if you'd have ever shut up and listened to any of that, I wouldn't have had to say it 9 times to you, you bloody fundamentalist religious zealot with a globe belief. Right, moving on.
Nathan,
Yes.
Nathan, technically, it's even, if I may, it's even weirder because, as far as I know, nobody ever even claimed the hypothesis for supposed Newtonian gravity. Not Newton. I don't think at any point there was scientific validity claimed to the concept. And then eventually it just moved on to Einstein's concept.
Good point.
So I don't think it was considered scientific at any point.
Good point. Adam normally knows that quote off the top of his head from Newton himself. I feign no hypothesis for gravity. A hypothesis being the thing that precedes an experiment. So before experiment, you have a hypothesis. An experiment is a hypothesis test. And Newton himself, talking about this mass attracting mass nonsense, says, I feign no hypothesis. That's his own words. It's Newtonian gravity this guy's claiming. And even the guy who's named after says he feigns no hypothesis for it. Yet this clown thinks there's an experiment for it in the form of balls in a shed from Cavendish. My God, that's what we're dealing with here. Clowns, idiots.
I mean, it's a good example, the last 40 minutes of him trying to, give us a straw man for a model, but it's very symptomatic of what you encounter with a lot of know-it-all ballers, and what you end up doing is exactly what's happened here, is not discussing anything, but having to educate them on their model. All they do is come in and demonstrate their own ignorance and lack of understanding as to why they even believe what they believe. And that's all that's been demonstrated here by a young man who towards the end sounded like he was having a bit of a breakdown. As probably the cog disc was kicking in, but yeah, pretty.
Gives me new respect for Rumpus and Kosho and guys like that, because this guy's a rookie.
They fell apart years ago, didn't they? And accepted to just pursue the lie. But I think what you heard there was reality dawning a little bit.
Well, no one ever assumes that they can come and take an arse beating from a flat earther because they're just stupid idiots. And obviously we already know we're on a sphere. So within 5 minutes of arriving here, you find that you don't actually know your own argument very well, and your opponent does. You know, inside out, back to front, and can pull it apart in every single respect and demonstrate how little you know about it. And that leaves you cackling and going, oh my God, like that guy was, having, as you describe it, a little nervous breakdown. Eating his mic the whole time. Just annoying.
The best bit, Nath, was the you describing the Cavendish charade previously, and then him going, I can come up with an experiment, but I can't name it, but it's something to do with balls on a bit of string. And just a clear demonstrator. He had no comprehension of why he believes what he believes. And even when it was actually named to him previously, he didn't even trigger that was the thing that apparently is one of his fundamental beliefs as to why he believes what he believes. So, yeah, just a great demonstration of ignorance.
He's a rookie.
Yeah.
Hey, Nathan, I got it in Master B from Wiki.
Perfect. This is from Newton himself. Can somebody other than me read it?
Yeah, I'll do it.
You got it.
Actually, Adam, go ahead. You do it, buddy.
I'll do it because I like the title. In 1999 translation of the Principia, presents Newton's remarks as follows. I have not yet been able to discover the reason for these properties of gravity from phenomena, and I do not feign hypothesis. For whatever is not deduced from the phenomenon must be called a hypothesis, and the hypotheses, whether metaphysical or physical or based on occult qualities or mechanical, have no place in experimental philosophy. In this philosophy, particular propositions are inferred from the phenomena and afterward rendered general by induction.
Perfect. Quick shout out to Godzilla, who says, Daddy's laughter says it all. He has nothing left but cognitive dissonance. And that's clear. Thank you very much for the super chat, Godzilla37. I'm sure I missed somebody out as well as we were in the middle of the discussion. If I roll back through and see your super chat, if I missed it, I'm really sorry. But if I do, I will shout it out. Oh yes,
I can assure you that
there we go. Sorry, just one
went
second.
right over that guy's head.
Just 1 second. I'll just shout out this super chat. Shatner's Bassoon, thank you very much indeed for the super chat. He says, "Is gravity the independent variable?" Yeah, that's very manipulate something we can't prove and haven't got to show. Yeah, well done. Thank you very much, Shatner's Bassoon. Sorry, Neil, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that probably went right over that guy's head. Everything that Adam just read, he has no clue.
That's why his mate sent him here. He's a typical heliocentric big head, as Adam describes. So yeah, that's why he's been sent here. I think it's brilliant. Whoever your mate is, I'd give you a high five because he was the perfect person to come here. Absolutely epic. A little knowledge is a dangerous thing.
If we want to prove gravity, we got to manipulate the bending of space-time. Now, what is the bending of space-time in the natural world? Oh, wait, nobody actually knows? There's just vague descriptions of it? Oh, well, we didn't see that coming at all.
Just for anybody that hasn't heard the rest of the housekeeping questions, if you're a newbie, which I know there are people here, we'll just rattle through the rest of them. So, any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Nonsense.
Emails.
Emails? That's a Dr. Becky reference if I've ever heard one.
I think it's just plenty of I can't say it, phenomena. But that's all you're ever going to get, I think, in that field.
Yeah, plenty of dependent variables. Not very many hypotheses. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Now that's really nonsense.
P waves and S waves. If you would presume that one day they would be able to get it right.
Get
So
what
that's
right?
no.
Get what right?
Predictions that the P waves and S waves give them that they got wrong when digging down 8 miles.
Predictions
Well, they rely on them
versus...
when presupposing a sphere Earth. And Arwen
Well, I
saying
could
one
predict
day, maybe one day they'll be accurate.
Well, I could predict a lot of things. How about facts?
Mystic Meg predictions or scientific hypotheses? Not that I'm calling you Meg. Any evidence that you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
You call me mystic.
Nonsense.
Yes, the assumption that we don't need a container for gas pressure is the proof that we don't have gas pressure without a container.
What Arwen's done there is detailed begging the question fallacy in his description of his justification for the proof. In other words, if my begging the question fallacy, then my begging the question fallacy, because I've detailed what the begging the question fallacy is in my description. Not slick,
and
not
you can
slick.
go outside and prove it by just looking at the sky, and it just confirms it to you.
Right.
At least-
all you have to do
that's
is
better.
assume it's a vacuum, and it is.
No, that's better. So that is actually doing something when making what they claim is a justifiable presupposition. Well, if I go outside and I point at, let's paraphrase what Adam says, my fundamentalist religious belief that the sky is a vacuum, and the air's not filling my fundamentalist presupposition that the sky is a vacuum, then the sky is a vacuum! What do you know? Isn't that cool? Yeah, that's a natural law violation, though. Second law of thermodynamics violation, Adam. If the sky was a vacuum, as per your fundamentalist presupposition, obviously devil's advocate, then the gas we breathe would fill that space. It's called entropy.
Ooh. Rumpus is in chat claiming that Newtonian gravity is Einsteinian gravity. Isn't that just special?
They're not even the same geometry. Euclidean versus pseudo-Riemannian. 3 space versus 4 space. No, we're still waiting for you to show us those conversion mathematics, if I do believe correctly. I don't think anybody's going to ever do that because they're not even in the same geometry. Correct me if I'm wrong, Adam. They're not even, you can't even equate them into the same thing, right?
Well, I think Rumpus would be up for a prize, wouldn't he, if he did present that? It would be certainly worthy of higher status than the flat Earth debates to have something like that presented. He'd probably, yeah, not a chance, pal.
Yeah, we don't have to look far to find the fact that it's been superseded. However, we're still waiting for the field equations to give us some sort of explanation for the moon's gravitational pull and the tides. The 2 bodies. We'd like to see that now. That would be useful. How do the tides get caused with the body of mass that is claimed to be the moon and the Earth?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't we waiting on a lot of stuff from Rumpus?
Yeah, we'll be waiting and waiting and waiting.
Aren't we due ray tracing? It's from back in the day still. And then he went downhill, disappeared, came back saying it was just too ill to finish it. But I'm sure we still owe some Isle of Man ray tracings.
Yeah, I was about to launch into the defence against it, but to be fair, that was... God, how long ago is that now? It's probably 4 years ago. I said, yeah, that's the last opportunity you have to beg the question. You do the ray tracing, obviously you're going to be assuming R in your ray tracing model for the observation that Anthony Riley provided from his belly on the beach at St Bees of the north end of the Isle of Man. Man, that is like 4 years ago now, isn't it?
Ooh, Rumpus is in chat and he says he has a paper that demonstrate Einstein's field equations reduced to Newton's law. Really?
Demonstrates or does it?
Demonstrates that it can be done, or does it do it?
Yeah.
We'll find out, I
don't
guess. Maybe we'll get a link to the location another time. We will see. We wait with bated breath to find out if the pseudo-Riemannian 4-space bending nonsense is translatable into the Cavendish nonsense. I'm sure that's going to prove that we've got a non-force force that you can think of as a force that's not actually a force. Wonderful, wonderful.
Well, maybe Rumpus is just embracing the nonfiction in science.
Yeah, that's it. Don't have to work at the really is level if when you're talking about pseudo-Riemannian 4-space bending. You can't bend time and space, but there we go. These conceptual ideas can be argued about all day if you've got a fundamentalist sphere belief. The dude that was eating his mic, he doesn't know what superseded means. He doesn't realise the Cavendish so-called experiment has been crumpled up and thrown in the trash. Yeah, 106 years ago. Correct, exactly, James Richard. He just doesn't know what superseded means. You need to explain why this man-made device does what it does. No, I don't, no. Because that's not the current rhetoric. Bending space-time is the current rhetoric.
Hey, Chocolate and Brian, by the way.
He was a total, actually, Nathan, when he started, the initial starting point was that what we talk about is when people are interested in this, the first thing they seek is, well, if this is something to look at, then present me with your model. Give me a new paradigm to believe in. Otherwise, I'm not prepared, as he was quite categorically saying, I'm not prepared to step outside or even consider anything else unless you give me a new paradigm to step into.
Yeah, give me the false dichotomy or I'm not arguing.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, that was outstanding, the way you just took that guy to pieces, Nathan.
So, did you say we've got
You're
Rumpus here now?
and you still don't understand Cavendish's experiment.
So, do you have that mathematics that shows that you can take pseudo-Riemannian 4-space and put it into 3-space? Can you do that?
Happy Christmas, Rumpus, first of all.
Yes, happy Christmas.
And you're another moron who doesn't understand anything about physics.
So, do you have that
With
mathematics?
his nonsense.
Do you have that mathematics then? Are you going to post a link in live stream so we can have a quick look at it, or what?
Describes how you can convert one to the other. Yeah, okay, I got it here.
Perfect. Can you post it in live stream? I'm obviously not going to get a look at it now, but maybe Adam will pick it up from you. We shall see.
Well, he's too stupid to understand anything about physics. I mean, this is a guy who can't even work out how an aeroplane dips. I mean, Jesus Christ, doesn't understand about thermodynamics, and he thinks that he doesn't understand P V is equal to nRT and the relationship to energy. He won't
Are you
understand any of
praying,
this. He's
Ramon?
wrong.
Just
shut up.
I'm sure Adam
man.
can justify that with the last couple of minutes of the
Too
show. Go ahead, Adam.
nonsense.
Feel free.
Airplanes don't dimp robots. That's a lot of rubbish.
Hey, Brian. Good to have you. Go ahead, Adam.
Hey, Nathan.
Well, there's very little to actually justify it. It was just a straightforward ad hom, not backed up or supported with anything, just a standard rumpus. But yeah,
Yeah,
mate, it's good to see you've not changed. I look forward to the same old.
tell him, Adam. Tell him, Adam. That's weak sauce, man.
Well, it's not very good, is it? It's a bit. Oh, I was going to say 2018, but I'd even go 2017, really.
2016 almost. It's like, bro, like step up your game, bro. Join us in 2020.
Just posted the paper, which shows how to derive Newton's laws from Einstein's field equations, in complete contradiction to what you said, Nathan, a few minutes ago, because you're a moron.
Well, we haven't seen it yet. Let's not declare victory yet just because you've posted something. We have no idea what you've posted. We'll have to take our time over discussing whether or not the bending of a concept can be divided into mass attracting mass, pseudo-Riemannian 4 space and Euclidean 3 space. We'll have a look at it. I mean, obviously it doesn't generate any force from gravity. Gravity's
Yes,
not
it
a
does.
force.
That's exactly what it does.
I mean-
Exactly what it does.
So dividing
you're gonna
pseudo-Riemannian
show
4
us an
space into
equation?
Euclidean... Hold on, guys. Dividing pseudo-Riemannian 4 space into Euclidean 3 space means that you have a physical force in nature, does it?
Correct.
Oh, really? Why would George Musa say that gravity is not a force, then?
So that force that you can't account.
No, I asked why George Musa would state that it's not a force.
Didn't hear that. You over.
Why did George Musa say, quote, gravity's not a force? I mean, you can think of it as a force. But George Musa specifically said gravity's not a force, and I'm asking why you'd say it is when he says it's not.
Later, and then 30 seconds later, he said you have to treat it as a force.
Treat it as a force. But he also said that it's not a force. Now, treating something as a force when it's not a force, that seems like a contradiction to me. Now, you're saying that this pseudo-Riemannian 4 space-time bending is a force? That makes no sense. It's a concept.
It means several things. It's
Well, you can't bend concepts. Can you tell me how you can bend time?
an umbrella term. We have the force due to magnetism, and then we have magnetism. So just like when he described gravity, he was talking about the umbrella term for the bending of space-time. And then he went on to say, you have to treat it as a force. And at that point, he was talking about the force of gravity.
Well,
Hey
he also
Nathan,
said-
I treat my dog like a princess, but don't mean she is. She's still a dog.
Yeah. I treat my Lexus like it's a Lamborghini, but it doesn't mean it is. But you can think of it as a Lamborghini. With that, I'm going to say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who did tune in, smash the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!